It is 11, yes, okay. Good morning. It's a little crazy this morning. Good morning and welcome to all of you who have joined us today and on Zoom. Let's take a moment to greet those and welcome those who are attending the service on Zoom today. Dustin, could we have you down? There we go. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you. It's so nice to be together with everyone. To all who are visiting us today, welcome. We are honored by your presence here, that you found something to draw you to us today, and we hope you find something of value and will come again. If you'd like to learn more about us, our contact information is on the small cards on the table in the narthex, and in our newsletter, The Communicator, which is also on the table. We welcome families here at UUCLC, and childcare is available during services. A special thank you this morning to Terry Sullivan for the beautiful piano music today, and to Dustin Agan and Janine Reagan for their tech support. And by the way, anyone can watch us live on Zoom. The link is on our website, uulakecounty.org. and in our weekly bulletin, which is available by email on request. First, we have a few announcements. Be sure to check out the weekly service bulletin attached to your Sunday service email. There you will see that we have many groups and committee meetings. Some are live here in the church, and some are on Zoom only, and others offer a choice on how you can attend. There are many different ways to be involved in our congregation, and we hope that you can find something among them that fits your interests and talents. The success of this congregation depends on the work of many hands. Each of us has something special to offer. Our Safe Congregation Committee has been diligent in monitoring the COVID numbers in our area, and as of November 22nd, Lake County numbers are down enough so that we can continue our social hour with coffee and cookies after services, and our monthly potluck, which is now scheduled for the first Sunday of each month. Our next potluck will be New Year's Day, so we hope many of you will join us to ring in the new year. Wearing masks is now optional and is the decision of the individual. We still want to be safe, however, please continue to stay at home if you have any COVID symptoms or are recovering from COVID or have had recent exposure. We appreciate your cooperation in our efforts to stay safe. On Christmas Eve, there will be a program with stories and sing-along starting at 6 p.m. If you can, please bring cookies for the social time after. Holiday beverages will be provided. New Year's Day falls on a Sunday this year. There will be a potluck, but no service. We will gather at 12 noon. This is a good remedy for hangovers and a great beginning to the new year, gathering together in fun and friendship. All are welcome. David Roth tickets are on sale today in the narthex and will continue to be on regular Sunday service days throughout December and early January. The concert is January 16th. Think 26, excuse me, got the wrong number. Thank you. Thank you. Think holiday gifts for friends, neighbors, family, and for yourself. Merry Christmas to me. This is a fundraiser and a fundraiser for our church. Does anyone else have an announcement? If you'll just raise your hand, we'll bring you a mic.
Okay.
Perfect.
First, one quick announcement. This is the last week for the Bring and Buy. You've noticed all the nice things spread on the tables up there. So please help yourself and make whatever donation you'd like to for the Social Justice and Environment Committee's project work. If you brought something in that's still on the table at the end of the day, I'm going to be packaging up everything to take it to a thrift store. So if you want to take back whatever you brought in, please pick it up from the table and take it away with you. Last chance. Then a second announcement, something which is so exciting for our Social Justice and Environment Committee. One of our members, our stalwart member, not just of SJEC, but also of the congregation, is being recognized today. Jane Hefton today will be recognized as Lake County Conservationist of the Year.
Oh, wow.
Your faith community is so proud of you. And thank you for what you do. Thank you. The ceremony to present Jane's Award is this afternoon over at Trout Lake. It's the annual holiday potluck there, and quite a number of us are going. And if anyone else feels like going, there are lots of us who are members of multiple organizations who are involved in this. We can bring guests. So if anyone feels like joining the holiday potluck over at Trout Lake, it's either at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. Yeah. And there's that nice Publix right by Trout Lake. So you can pick up some, you have to, but there'll be plenty of food undoubtedly. Once again, Jane, congratulations.
I just wanted to thank everyone who adopted a senior for St. Philip seniors. I'm picking up the gifts today to deliver to Bay Pharmacy, and they'll be getting them out to the seniors in the next week or so. So thank you, everyone. There's 3 more gifts that were adopted that still need to come in. So if you're one of those people, please give it to me at the end of service today. If not, I'm going to try to track people down.
Chris.
So much. Good morning, everybody. I don't know if you've noticed, but there are things like lights and signs are coming down from elections, and there's all kinds of strange flows in the sky at night. Imagine my surprise when I got a phone call last night at midnight, exactly midnight. And there was this weird sounding elvish voice on the other end of the phone, letting me know that he was going to be in town. I said, well, who is this? He said, you know who I am. I said, no, who are you? I said, calm down, peace to the season, happy holidays, everything will be fine. Well, what do you need me to know? He said, you need to get a group of people excited about singing. You know what about. I said, no, what? Well, Hanukkah's coming. He said, yes, that's one. It's a wonderful holiday. Well, Kwanzaa's coming. Well, that's after Christmas. You don't need to worry about Kwanzaa. Hey, what about, Christmas? Is that what you? That would be fine. Anyway, he said, could you put together a few groups that might sing, some of those fun songs? I said, well, I'll see what we can do. So we have a bunch of people trying to figure that out this morning here at our church. And our beautiful piano player is up here going, when do you want me to play? What do you want me to play? How many songs do I have to prepare for? How much rehearsing do I need? Calm down. He said, peace on earth, goodwill to many. And then I have our regular guy over here who's putting all the stuff together on Sunday mornings. Glenn said, well, we're supposed to be singing carols next week. Would that be okay? He said, he never had any more words. So we're kind of up in the air at the moment. We don't know exactly what the plans are going to be, but we better get on our back and let's start getting ready for singing. So maybe next week we might have a 9:30 choral recital rehearsal. I don't know if we're going to sing Christmas carols maybe, or I don't know, whatever good song we want to sing. And I don't know if you'll be ready or not, or if we need to have anything prepared, but maybe you can find it. You're always prepared. And then on Christmas, we're not going to be here on Christmas Day because you're all going to be home with your families or with other, tithing going on. And then the night before, though, Christmas Eve, we are going to go ahead and do a special night. That night, at 7 o'clock on Christmas Eve, right here in this church. And we're definitely going to have, excuse me, 6 o'clock. Thank you, Susie. 6 o'clock. And we're going to have singing. And we make what, cookies and donuts and eggnog and whatever.
Bring your own
Stories. There may even be a service. Oh, bring your own.
Bring your own cookie.
Just
Bring
cookies.
your.
And we'll provide the cider.
Oh, we can have cider. So anyway, thank you all for getting ready for the holidays. And we look forward to seeing you all next week and on Christmas Eve, I guess. And we'll have more. Watch your emails. Make sure you get all the messages.
There's, oh yeah, Henry. Yeah, bring Henry one.
Okay. Well, good morning. Just a quick update on the Ministerial Search Committee. The Ministerial Search Committee has recommended to the Board of Trustees that we hire Reverend Cynthia Stavely to an 18-month part-time interim minister contract to be shared with Tri-UU, okay, our neighbors to the north. So it still needs to go to the board, and the board needs to take a look at that and approve it and go from there with negotiations about how much money and that sort of thing, which is all detailed. The fundamental recommendation has been made, and I thought you should know that today. So, excellent.
Anyone else have an announcement? But we're busy. It's the season. So our speaker today is Reverend Kaaren Anderson. Originally from Wisconsin, Reverend Anderson graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in 1988 with a BS degree in art administration. Then in 1995, she received a Ministry of Divinity from the Union Theological Seminary, Columbia University. Ordained in 1995, her preliminary fellowship began that year with the UU Society of Rockport, Massachusetts. After gaining full fellowship in 1999, Reverend Anderson served congregations in Glens Falls, Utica, Rochester, and Canandaigua, New York. She currently serves as the interim minister for the UU Fellowship in Vero Beach. She has an online studio of her artwork, which is delightful, Solvig Studio, of which she says, "My primary goal with the creation and development of Solvig Studio is to bring you, yes, you, more joy and laughter into your life and home." She does pet portrait art on commission. She and her husband, Scott Taylor, live on a small horse farm in Honeoye Falls, New York. During our service this morning, please mute your phones. If you are joining us on Zoom, please stay muted. If you are interested in receiving our weekly bulletin or in learning more about us, please send an email to office@uulakecounty.org so we may contact you.
Good morning. When my kids were growing up, I have 3 children. My daughter Solveig, when she was in 2nd grade, we moved next door to what became her best friend, Julia. And they were kind of thick as thieves. They did everything with each other all the time. And they were in and out of each other's houses. And so much so that Julia was a very picky eater, and she'd often open up the refrigerator at our house and be so disappointed that I felt bad. So I finally started getting some food that I knew Julia would like. Anyway, so they were tight like this, right? Now, Julia had a younger brother with autism, and he was a very, very anxious kid. And when he'd get upset, he'd run over from their house and he'd just come into the house, and he would be upset, and the only thing that could calm him down was if you were working at home, he'd put his head in your lap and you didn't touch him, but he'd just tell you what was going on, and he would start to calm down. And then we could walk him over to his house. Usually his mother, Jane, would call and say, "Hey, is Steven over there?" And we'd say, "Yeah." And, as he got older, he'd do the same thing, but then he'd start walking back himself. So over all of these years, Julia started in the habit about 2 years in of us knowing her. She would open up the big sliding door all times of the day, and she'd yell out to us, "My peoples, where are my peoples?" And, sure enough, either Solveig would come or one of my other kids or my husband and I. And I always loved that because she did it all the time. My peoples. Where are my peoples? It reminds me that I think kids sometimes are really good at kind of finding their tribe, those people that they can connect to, that they feel like they are one with, right? When they need a break, when they need time away to get re-grounded and resettled again. But I actually think that's one of the reasons we come to church, right? We come so that we can be reminded that it is together in this tribe of ours of sorts, right? That we find our peoples. And what a great gift that is. That when you have a sin-sick soul, when you are in need of celebrating something that's really joyous in your life, you want to be connected and with other people who are your peoples. So welcome to this celebration of life. It's good to be together with all of you.
We gratefully acknowledge the traditional lands of the Timucua Native peoples, upon whose ancestral homeland we walk today. We are blessed with this land, and we vow to care for it from now on as our Mother Earth cares for us and for all living things. We are the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Lake County. We are inclusive, non-creedal fellowship that works for a just community and fosters a lifelong search for personal fulfillment. We strive to be a congregation that includes all persons, embracing differences of sexual orientation, gender and its expression, religious background, marital status, family structure and age, mental and physical health and ability, racial and cultural identity or background, and educational or socioeconomic status. We welcome all to share in the life of our congregation. At UUC, we value making a difference in ourselves, in our community, and even in the world. I am Alexandra Regan, and I am honored to be your service leader this morning. To all who are visiting with us today, welcome. We are honored by your presence here, that you found something to draw you to us today, and we hope you find something of value and will come again. If you would like to learn more about us, our contact information is on the small cards on the table in the narthex, and in our newsletter, The Communicator, which is also on the table. If you are a first-time visitor, or perhaps returning after an absence, and if you feel comfortable doing so, I invite you now to wave your hand, and you'll be called on to tell us who you are and where you're from, and perhaps what brought you here today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jackie Shea, and I recently moved to Deer Island from beautiful Lauderdale by the Sea in Broward County. And I've been here 6 days, and I'm looking for a church, and I found it.
Excuse me, my name is Kevin Flynn, and this is my first time at this service. And I live in Eldora, and I came at the suggestion of a friend.
Welcome. Yeah, that's exciting, huh? A special thank you this morning to Terry Sullivan for the beautiful piano music today, and to Dustin Agan and Janine Reagan for their tech support. By the way, anyone can watch us live on Zoom. The link is on our website, uulakecounty.org. Am I repeating myself? And our weekly bulletin, which is available by email on request. Okay, to begin. This solstice day, in honor of ancient traditions that celebrate this time of longest night, we observe that the flaming chalice holds the elements of the four directions: earth, air, fire, and water. The lamp oil for earth, the air that feeds the flame, the fire we light, and the chalice itself, the cup, the symbol of water. We light our chalice and reflect on the light we need to guide us through hard times, the light of our shared faith, the light of loving community, and the light of love, joy, and hope. Let's sing together hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. Stand if you wish. I'm standing. If, huh? Can I have the key? Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice, fruits holy clouds, winds set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Each Sunday, we make time for those who wish to offer a joy, concern, or sorrow, or to set an intention for the coming days. As we share joy, it multiplies. When we share sorrow, it begins to lessen. Sharing an intention can give us strength. If you would like to take part in our stone ritual, I invite you now to come in silence to place a stone or stones in the sand at either of the two stations, one in the front and one in the back. Following this time, anyone who has a joy, concern, or intention that you wish to share out loud with the congregation, please raise your hand and someone will bring the mic to you. Is there anyone who has a joy, concern, or intention they would like to share aloud with the congregation?
Our good friends, the Rossis, Jenna and Ernie, are going through a very rough time right now. Jenna had a recent fall and is recovering, but is on a walker. And Ernie is facing a fairly serious surgery. They would prefer that you not call, but they do appreciate cards, notes, your thoughts, and your prayers. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So those of you who have definitely spoken with me, you know I talk about Dungeons and Dragons as if the player's handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide were the Old and New Testament. So, and I also run a YouTube channel and professionally play and host. And just this Thursday, somewhere, I don't know, if whatever you consider midnight, it would be the previous or new day. Anyway, we're not sponsored. And legally, by contract, I kind of have to say this. If anyone here is a bit of a coffee drinker, coffee addict, or you know someone who's a bit of an energy drink addict, come talk to me after service. I might have a fix for you.
Anyone else? Oh, they're good. Okay.
I would just like to welcome Brittany Reimer back home.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sad that Paul Whalen was not able to join us.
Anyone else? Okay, if there's anyone who has not been mentioned that you hold concern for, please feel free to name them aloud at this time. Those attending by Zoom may unmute briefly. We will now enter into a time of silent meditation, being mindful of the joys and concerns we have just heard. Take a moment to find a comfortable posture and let the chime draw you into mindfulness. Terry's lovely music will then bring us back. Please join me in reaffirming who we are by reciting together our congregational covenant found on the screen. Love is the spirit of this church, and through service, we live our principles. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. It is our practice to give generously to our church as we are able, keeping in mind both its meaning in our lives and its impact on the world. We are grateful to all who provide financial support for UCLC. There are multiple ways to do this, which are found on the slide, in the Cindy Service Bulletin, and on our UCLC website. For those who are here today, you can leave your contribution in the wooden box located on the table in the narthex just outside the sanctuary doors. Thank you for all donations today. Let's all rise as we are able and sing from the Gray Book hymn number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Love will guide us, peace has guide us, hope has guide us, we'll be forward from, breathing love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot see my angels, if you cannot see the thousands, and give from within you can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, Jesus guide us, hope inside us, we'll lead the way. With love, reach infinity. Love will guide us through our life.
I have to be honest. Sometimes, well, this one thing made me kind of uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do with it, I guess is a better way of saying it. So when I was the co-senior minister at First Unitarian in Rochester, New York, we had a growing deaf ministry. And there was always an interpreter that would be with me when I preached. And we had two, like we called them deaf coordinators. So one was Rupert, he couldn't hear, and his wife, Brooke, could. So each week for 2 years, so I don't remember much of this, but for 2 years, I met with Brooke and Rupert, and we'd meet at a cafe and I'd try to work on my sign language skills. And while we were at the cafe, like I wasn't allowed to talk or even like, you know, give up and try to do sign language, any of that stuff. So it was often quite funny. And I felt though blessed by the time that I got to spend with them and kind of learning something completely foreign to me. It kind of felt like you were widening your circle. So after one of those lessons, I wanted to show my gratitude and I got up and I gave Rupert a hug, right? And that's kind of what I do with people usually. But it was a dinky hug. It's kind of the hug that we often give as human beings. And I mean the kind of hug like when you're, how to explain this? Like you're a little bit triangular with someone when you're hugging them, right? You're not up close to them. And when I got done with that, he just looks at me like this with his arms crossed and he says, no. And I'm like, what do you mean? No. And he said, basically that when, deaf people hug, they want to connect to someone. So now that made me uncomfortable. Wasn't really something that I need to explain this. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Okay, so he said that's not how deaf people hug, right? And he takes me and he pulls me into this hug so that my body is flat against him and he's holding me really tight. And it's like a hug you don't really ever give someone, right? And it made me feel somewhat, uncomfortable, as you might guess, but because you're flat against someone. But there also is that deep connection in that hug. And it got me in touch with this kind of like deep longing, the longing we all have for a deeper kind of connection with other people, especially perhaps at what is, let's hope, kind of the nearing of, like, let's really, really hope the nearing of the end of this COVID issue where we were kind of not allowed to touch and be close with people all the time. So when I asked Brooke and Rupert to share with me what's behind that kind of hug in deaf culture, because Rupert said to me, this is how deaf people hug each other. And then he emailed me and he said this: since deaf people share more personal information more quickly with each other, it then feels wrong to shake someone's hand. There are studies that show how much more invested the person is in any kind of relationship after any kind of physical contact. So the more contact there is, the more the person becomes a human being to the other one. And then Brooke added on to that email by saying this: I do think that deaf people in general have less opportunity for meaningful interactions with people. So when they have the opportunity to really get to know and exchange personal and meaningful information, they want to follow it up with something like a full body hug to you. An act that says, hey, we're both human. We're in this together. You're not alone. Now that line gets at the heart of what I'm after today. Tell me you don't long for those moments when we are assured that we are in this all together, when you know that you're not alone in the world, that you're not feeling isolated from other people. You long for those times where you feel deeply connected. After so much social distancing and aversion actually to physical touch, for good reason, right? Which is what we did. I'm not negating that. But it got me thinking about humans longing for love moments. And it reminded me of two things. The first actually is this statistic that kind of haunts me every time I come upon it. And I honestly, I don't remember anymore who the social scientist was who put this together, though I do remember what the statistic is and how haunting it is. And it's this. The question was posed to Americans: how many people do you have in your life that you can share important parts of your life with them? So people you can tell your longings, your hopes, your dreams, kind of your sorrows, your worries, your anxiety, your passion. 40 years ago, the answer to that question was 6. When the study was done, which was pre-pandemic, the answer was 1.5. Now, the only way that you can get to 1.5 means a bunch of people are answering that by saying 0. Since this pandemic has been going on, I have wondered if that statistic has changed, right? That is it still true that only 1.5 is the number of people that you can like really connect to, or is it worse than that? So for me, that's a really unnerving, kind of haunting statistic. On the top of that, I want to add this quote that I came upon that says, the opposite of hate is not isolation. Well, I'm getting this wrong. The opposite of hate is not love, right? It's isolation. The opposite of hate is not love, it's isolation. And I've also read that before as the opposite of love is not hate, but indifference. But it seems to me indifference is isolation, just in a different form in and of itself. Anyway, as I've been thinking about all of this, I came upon this book by this writer named Barbara Fredrickson. And she wrote this wonderful book called Love 2.0, How Our Supreme Emotions Affect Everything We Feel, Think, Do, and Become. So now Fredrickson's book reveals a new way about thinking about love. Simply put, she wants us to love more. And she claims that part of the reason we don't love more is due to the way that we think actually about love. The problem, according to her, is we make love both too small and too big at the same time. In other words, we have an operating system of love that is 1.0. Like if you think about the first Apple, iPhone, right? A 1.0 version of love. Our 1.0 love is too small in the sense that we kind of limit our love to special relationships, to our family and to our friends, to our partners. That's how small it is. For most of us, love is something that is thought of as this kind of like magical, all-encompassing feeling that comes over you, that makes you feel like we are that one special person in the world to one other. But she argues that love actually is not about being the most special person in the world to somebody or relegated to a select few. Instead, love is simply any moment where we are given the gift of being pulled out of our isolation into connection. Now, I want you to hear that again, okay? Love is simply any moment where we are given the gift of being pulled out of our isolation into connection with someone else. Now, here's kind of where in her book, she gets to all this brain science about things like DNA and biochemistry and cell development, which is all very interesting, but I'm really going to get to my point today. Instead, I want to kind of get to her conclusion and lift that up. She wants us to see love as micro moments, these like tiny moments of connection that thereby make love more accessible and manageable, enabling us to love more often. She calls it like her upgrade to love 2.0. And after reading her work, I realized she radicalized kind of love for me. I don't think really that our deepest longing is to have this magical feeling of love all the time that results in feeling like we are the one special person to one other in the world that's unconditional or constant or familial. No, now I believe that what we long for, and I think I've observed with all the congregations that I've worked with, is to not feel isolated and alone. And to use Brooke's words, who was talking about that hug that I had with Rupert, right? She said, the hug is to remember we are both human. We are in this together. You're not alone. And sure, that happens with special people in our lives after years of building trust and intimacy, but it can also happen at moments with strangers through simple acts of compassion. Love is something we can give at any time. See, when I put Fredrickson's book down, two things occurred to me. One is that it's not really that hard to make other people feel loved. It's not really, and this is going to sound really ridiculous, but the kind of thought or image that came in my head is that Nike ad that used to be like, just do it, right? So this morning, I have two lessons and a means to tease out kind of living into Fredrickson's 2.0 love. The first is this. I want to start with this researcher whose name is John Gottman, who started what he called the Love Lab at the University of Washington. So Gottman started this lab in order to analyze kind of what made couples stay together. That was his whole purpose of starting the Love Lab. And originally the team was kind of under this impression that if they watched couples together, like over a weekend, so you get couples in this lab talking to each other kind of for a whole weekend, and they're being observed and they're being videotaped. They thought that what would happen is that they would have these magical moments that would make, like a marriage stick, deep sharing or vulnerable self-disclosure, intimate details of hopes and dreams and fears. But the experiment was a complete failure. At least that's how they felt about it at the first round of all of this and looking at the videotape. Because what happened when couples got in this room together is they're going through a whole weekend, and the only thing that happened was like chit chat, right? It wasn't this deep, immersive, kind of important, meaningful, all expressive way of communicating with each other. What they observed was just chit chat. So they were a little confused, thinking, one thing that they were going to come in with, and then they experienced something else. So they started talking about, okay, what do we do now? Because what we just observed were people like, hey, can you pass me the paper, or do you want some orange juice or coffee? And really, all they did was talk about things like with their family. Can you help the kids with the homework? Can you do any of those things? So they go back to their lab and they re-look at all of those films all over again. And they realized that there was a difference with some couples in their chit chat and other couples with their chit chat. So Gottman ended up concluding that what ultimately made a couple last was when the two of them saw exchanges not as a communication between the two of them, but as moments to connect with one another. And Gottman called those efforts bids. The couples that lasted were offering bids to one another. In other words, did the couple's communication make them turn towards each other and connect, or did their conversations make them turn away from each other and isolate each other from each other? So he gives some examples, of course. A husband might say something like, do you want some coffee? Now, a wife might just say, yeah, dear, that'd be great. Thank you. Or somebody could say something like this, right? A wife could respond, having her nose in the paper and ignore the offer for coffee, or might even say something like this, right? I'll take coffee as long as you don't complain that you're my servant. That is not a bid at all. It's kind of a harsh example, but you get the idea. Okay, so another one. A wife might say something like, what do you think of this dress? Now, a husband could say back, it's lovely. I love that color on you. It's one of my favorite colors on you. Or they could say something like this. It looks fine, whatever. We have to go. Or, is that a trick question? If you want a compliment, just ask for one. So none of those are bids. None of them are bids. And in the end, Gottman found that bids became almost the perfect marker, 92% of a marker of whether or not couples were going to stay together from 7 to 10 years down the road. If some of the time they gave few bids, but most of the time they were turning away from each other, isolating from each other, they did not stay together. In the end, Gottman's idea of bids actually gets to Fredrickson's idea of kind of those micro moments of what she's talking about, those micro moments of connection. The bids really are small things you can offer a spouse, but in truth, it seems to me, actually, we can offer bids to anyone at any time. It need not be contained to our spouse or a partner. In fact, we can take these bids, these micro moments of connection, and practice them each day in our workplace, with our friends and our neighbors, with our coworkers and our children. And they will indeed transform your day. I do think, actually, if we pay attention, people do this to us all the time. They just do, offering us micro moments of love and connection, and in turn, offering bids to others back. It's not really that hard to do. In fact, it is a little thing to do, a small effort with a really big consequence of ultimately what keeps us and others from feeling lonely and isolated from one another. So offer bids to stranger and friend, and upgrade your love to 2.0. The other thing is there is this little 6-minute video on TED TV that's put together by this woman named Hannah Beekner. So Hannah says that when she was in college, her folks didn't like call her up or text her or email her or anything. The only way they communicated with her was through the mail. And this is a millennial talking, right? So she says she was the only kid in college who would like actually wait to get something in the mail because she'd get these love letters. I mean, true love letters from her parents. And they were something really wonderfully physical for her to have to engage with her parents. And she, in some ways, felt bad about what her friends were doing or had, because, you know, the digital age is kind of, it goes away. You can tell someone you left someone on a text and then it's gone after you're deleting stuff, right? So anyway, Hannah, upon graduation, she moves to New York City and she finds herself terribly depressed and lonely and isolated. So in order to kind of connect, she did what she knew best, right? So she started writing love letters to strangers. And she would leave them in cafes and in coffee shops. She would leave them while she was waiting on the bus or while she was at the library at the UN and tuck them in between books. She left them for people to find no matter where she was. She did it all the time. Then one night before she goes to bed, she promises over the internet to anybody around the world, anyone who needs a love letter, anybody who needs somebody to remind them that they are of worth, she will write a handwritten letter to them. So she goes to bed, she wakes up, and the next day, she has so many inquiries that her inbox was entirely full. So she started an organization that's called The World Needs More Love Letters. And she continues on this practice. But what's so great about the practice is that other people around the world have kind of picked it up and used it, of course. For instance, this woman whose husband got back from Afghanistan was having a hard time kind of unearthing this thing called conversation. And his wife found herself tucking love letters throughout the house as a way of saying, come back to me, connect with me, find me when you can. Another young woman started doing this on a campus in Dubuque, Iowa, who was also feeling lonely and isolated. She did it for months at a time, and she too left them in nooks and crannies for strangers to find all over the campus. And then one day, she comes out of her dorm room, and there are love letters hanging off from a tree all around her dorm, all over the lawn and stuffed into various places. It's pretty cool. So here's the thing, right? Hannah, in the midst of her isolation and loneliness, did what she knew. She created little acts of love and connection, and herself surrounded by love. She found herself getting them back, right? Her letters are clear, and they're not really schmaltzy or romantic at all, really, when she writes them. They're letters. They're just simply letters of reminding people that you are of worth just for being you, that you're loved. She's making bids to others. She is offering kind of little micro moments of love. She is working with Love 2.0 operating system. It seems to me we are a lonely and isolated species. Sometimes we feel that way more than we do at other times, but I know for a fact that all of us have times that we have felt lonely and isolated. If anything that I want you guys to walk away from when you walk out of that sanctuary today is this. I want you to remember that love not be too small, that it is only relegated to your family or your friends, or too large, that is just for us and for one other person. I want you to remember the opposite of love is not hate, it's isolation. And then, friends, it doesn't take that much, just a daily practice of, well, just do it, give it, and receive love. Offer yourself to another. Love is gained, given, and received in small acts, kind of like drops in the bucket, micro moments that can fill us and fulfill us. Find your circle through love. Connect to another out of loneliness. Just do it. But also, here's the thing, I also understand that it's not always easy to do without some encouragement from someplace else. I know you need to receive before you can give. So actually, I asked numerous people in your congregation to write love letters to all of you. And they did. They wrote you words of love and connection. You see, your fellow parishioners are reminding you that you are of worth, that you're a gift to the world. They are written with care. Now, some of these may be funny, some may be kind of pretty straightforward. But I want you, when you get one of these, because they're going to hand them out really soon to you, I want you to hold them and to have them. I want you to open them up and read them and make them kind of like crinkly and well used, like a book you just love to death. I want you to do that with that love letter. And when you are ready, I want you to start some daily practice. Some practice of bids, of micro moments of connection that is distinctly yours, that indeed can carry you and others out of loneliness and isolation. Upgrade your operating system to 2.0 today and give away in micro moments or bids to others and heal your and their isolation. May it be so. Rip open those envelopes. Amen.
No matter how weak or how frightened we may feel, we each have gifts that can make a difference in the world. In this coming week, do at least one thing to support the broken, to welcome the stranger, to celebrate what is worthy, to do the work of justice and love. Be strong, be connected. Each day, act so you may be a little more whole. This is the season of several holidays. Christian Advent began on November 27th and marks each day until Christmas. The first Advent calendar was made of wood in Germany in 1851. The Jewish celebration of Hanukkah begins on December 18th and commemorates the rededication of the Second Temple of Jerusalem in the 2nd century BCE by lighting a candle each of the 8 days. Kwanzaa is a secular celebration by some African Americans honoring their cultural heritage. And my people, the Scots, don't celebrate until the new year, when hogmanay fires and rousing songs fill the Scottish air. However you celebrate, whatever you celebrate, we wish you a beautiful coming together with friends and loved ones to acknowledge the old year's exit and the birth of the new. May you be blessed. That concludes our service. We thank you again for joining us. Please enjoy Terry Sullivan's music as you depart, and we hope to see you again next week.